Should have been picking up on what's
So
on
the
this
summary,
page.
is the summary page more accurate, or would you say the?
No, I would say the second page is more accurate,
Okay, thanks.
because that's pulling right from the project pages.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
And I don't think,
For anybody who's not
I guess
here.
we should be blessed for that.
All right, so, I don't even, do we have an agenda?
yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay.
that,
We are back together. It's almost September. And, we just thought it'd be good for us to kind of get back, and just to remind everybody that when we finished up, last time, we had the 1 year that was all voted on, and then we had the 5-year. So now the whole point with coming back together in the next couple of meetings before we begin the whole budget process is to, see if we
that,
modify the next year, the one that's coming up. Do we think, everything on there is still, relevant, important, and then work on the now backfilling that 5th year? And then any changes we want to make along the way on projects. So, I think, I'm gonna hand it over to you, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brenda. All right, that do an overview. I know that Angelos is here, and he can update you on some of the stuff happening in the schools. In subsequent meetings, we plan to have the department heads come in and talk about their specific projects. So I'm gonna give an overview and maybe hit some of the highlights of the specifics on the town side and a little bit on the WPCA side as well, just to kind of let you know where I'm going. And I'll start.
With this?
Yeah, here we're looking at the larger packet, the capital planning workshop dated August 29th.
Thank you.
Skip to the pie chart there. And this is kind of refresher, so that, when I first came in, we kind of looked at the history of bonding in the town and, where it was focused, how much bonding that the town did, and to, just to reevaluate where we stand, and whether or not there's, we could be doing more, given the needs that we were seeing. And so, we did look at the split that, town bonding, pre-FY '21 to see how it was broken out between the town, the schools, and WPCA. And so you can kind of see where that is. Just, factually speaking, there was a large portion of the bonding that was done went to the public schools. And I know that you were heavily involved in this, I think, as a board member, yourself at the time.
Yeah.
Some of the school construction projects and large projects that were going on that probably represented a lot of that. So I requested of our financial advisor, our town financial advisor, to do a capacity analysis, and basically, kind of that sense, if we were to continue to pay debt service at the level that it was when I first came in, how much could we potentially bond each year? And so he did that analysis, and we're continuing to update that every year. That amount currently stands at approximately $35 million that we could bond. We've talked in the that gets split between the 3 entities, and so I would stick to what we talked about the first year that we did this, which was about $12.5 million each between the Board of Ed, schools and the town. And then, you know, at the time, we had talked about a lot of, you know, there being a cushion. I think since discovering that the amount that, and the needs of the WPCA, that probably that cushion would be eaten up by the WPCA to a large extent, in any given year. And so, so that's sort of an overview of how the dollar amounts would break down and what the overall amount is for, that we could bond each year.
Jared, mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did,
That, he takes that into account, our advisor takes that into account when he looks at it every year and, you know, makes different assumptions. For example, the first year, I remember I think the highest rate was maybe 3%, over a 20-year period. And, you know, in the last one he did, in the last analysis he did, it went up to about 4.5. That factored that into the amount.
You have it going from 3.5 to 3.75, 4.4, 3.75, to then 4.4. At the top
There you go.
This chart,
where's that, Mark?
one of the charts we got in one of the last meetings.
Oh, okay.
At the top, this chart, and it gives you all the interest rates. It's not.
Not in this
today's-
package. Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's in
Thank you. Yeah,
a package from.
okay.
And just, you know, the one thing I would say about that is that it'll fluctuate every year, and it's gonna go up, it's gonna go down, and so that's why I say, you know, approximately $35 million. You know, it could be 32.5, could be, I think the first year was 37.5. So that's why I'm saying approximately 35 million. And then the next chart, the next bar graph, shows a projection of the debt service to the budget, based on the, you know, the same assumptions about interest rate and how much we're borrowing.
And can I ask another question again? I forgive my ignorance on this, but is the 8.45% debt to budget threshold, what would normally be considered customary for a town like Fairfield?
So the Board of Finance's threshold was 10%, a maximum of 10%. I took 8.45 because at the time that's what the percentage was that was in the budget at the time when I came in, and rather than, you know, it was more of a political decision, so we didn't have to have conversations about, well, it's too high or too low. Like, that's what it is today, and we'll leave it there. And, you know, that could change if you know, if people thought that we could have the capacity and the operational ability to do more. You know, it could change.
So,
Or if there's a large project that needed to be done, then you know, that's a possibility.
So Lori, just a question for you then. So the Board of Finance feels like 10% would be the max that the town could support?
That's a policy.
Yeah, okay.
That was, yeah.
Okay.
All right. The next page is a summary of, as we know it now, and I'll get into some caveats and potential changes to this, but it gives a summary of each of the entities' proposed dollar amount of bonding each year over the next 5 years, and including the current. I know Angelos will talk more about the Board of Ed stuff, and I will presently go into the town side of things. The next page is it's just really an expansion of what's on the previous page, and gives a little more detail. Doesn't get into the project level, but you know, allows you to see what some of the offsets are in terms of grants, and other sources of funding.
Can I ask a quick question before you proceed?
Sure.
Is there a reason why the numbers on the summary don't match the total columns on the next page? They're slightly off. Like for town,
So-
it says 57 over here, but over here it says 54. Ours matches, DOE side. For WPCA, your summary says 48, but on this it says 50. So is there maybe a difference in the timing it was created or something? I'm just wondering, or are they meant to match?
No, they should match. There's probably a formulary error.
In this
That
Excel sheet?
the summary, so the summary page was, should have been picking up on what's
So
on
the
this
summary,
page.
is the summary page more accurate, or would you say the?
No, I would say the second page is more accurate,
Okay, thanks.
because that's pulling right from the project pages.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
And I'll take a look at that. Okay. So let's look at some of the projects, and I'm just, like I said, I'm not gonna go into, a lot of these, but I'll hit some of the highlights. Really the thing in 24 that I would point to, two things. One is the, roadway capital improvement plan, which is the paving program. We've pretty much we're at the end of this, probably by the end of the fall, we will have exhausted, funding. So we will likely propose to use 1.5 million of last year's surplus, FY '23 surplus, to fund the catch-up and categorize the catch-up projects for, paving. So what's in that $3.5 million number in FY '24 down in the capital section, there's $2 million that's included in the operating budget, and then what we would propose is that we use, 1.5 million in surplus, to keep up with the category laid out. Similarly, DPW, this is not completed. This is more of a placeholder number for a sidewalk restoration program, and you'll see it in future years as well. DPW had the same consultants go through and do an analysis of sidewalks in the town, and categorizing them as whether they need to be replaced. It was replacement, poor, fair, and then good or one of those types of categories. And so we just got this about 3 days ago, and so we're going through and trying to figure out, all right, here's what the actual need, and determine, what we would consider, similar to the paving program, what we would consider backlog, and focus on those and include those within the capital plan, and then get us also similar to the paving plan, that we would get ourselves to a base amount of sidewalks that should be done, and include that in the operating budget.
So this is just maintenance of existing sidewalks?
No, this would be, again, this is the $1 million is really a placeholder number, and we're gonna refine that probably over the next 2 weeks or so, to come up with a more solid number, but this would be to handle, to take care of some backlog.
Well, fixing and maintaining, but not putting in new sidewalks is what
Not putting in new sidewalks. They're also doing.
We're doing,
Yeah.
a sidewalk plan similar to what we did with our paving plan, so it's a full analysis. And what we're starting with is the walking areas around all the schools. So if you're a walker, we're doing those parameters to check them, see if they're, you know, needing repair, fixed, replaced, if there's missing pieces, and then we want to expand the survey out, just like we did with the paving. It's an analysis, scientific analysis on everything.
They're also doing,
Expensive, but we thought we'd focus mostly on the schools first, and then branch out.
so
So
there,
we should have better data, you said, a couple weeks, we'll
I would
have
say
some more information on that.
2 to 4 weeks.
analysis.
Hopefully before the, Board of Finance meeting. And so the really tricky thing with this is that, some of the sidewalk work gets embedded in the paving work, so when as we're doing, paving, they're also doing contiguous work that needs to get done on sidewalks in some cases.
Right.
Especially any of the ADA type of work, on the intersections. So we're trying to mesh together, one, you know, what's been done, as part of the paving program on sidewalks with this new study, and put it all together and see what still needs to be done, like a bluestone or something.
Sure, just a question, is there a separation between if they're concrete or asphalt
Yes.
sidewalks? Because I've seen
Those
some
are
around
defined.
Riverfield, a lot of patches of the asphalt has been replaced on the sidewalks in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Getting ready for school, so I just out of curiosity.
what's cheaper?
Yeah, they are, they're defined as they're, constructed right now. They're identified whether they're asphalt or concrete, or, you know, in rare cases, it might be like a bluestone or something like that. All right, so that's the current year. So those, 2 pieces were marked as a P because they haven't been, the operating part of the roadway plan was obviously approved in the budget, but the, 1.5 million that we would propose coming out of surplus has not been approved. Again, we end up putting in there, in the sidewalk restoration program, obviously hasn't been approved yet. So moving on to FY '25 on the next page, I'll flag the fire station rehab, amount, which we've typically had at, again, I put in 500,000, we're still doing some analysis there, but the costs, over the years have gone up there. And so they're gonna probably be looking for additional funding, in order to do the same amount of work that they've typically done in the past. What else here? Again, there is one grant, when we skip down to the capital section, there's one grant that we've submitted, for new sidewalks, getting to what Brenda was talking about. There's a connectivity grant that we've applied for and have identified, some areas around school where we could potentially put in new sidewalks. Where and then the sidewalk restoration program, as I described it, I increased it in the second year because there's actually 2 pieces to this. One, what I described in '24, meaning that we would, continue the program as it's been, laid out by the consultant, but also we applied for a steep grant, in this case, around the Metro Center area where the new brewery's going in. We applied for, marking, mostly marking, around the intersections there, because, you know, there's gonna be a lot more traffic around there, and there's not a lot there in terms of, you know, those kinds of safety aspects to pedestrian travel. So we applied for a steep grant for that. It's actually it was a good package, project for a steep grant, and, you know, and the timing is great given the activity that's going on down there. So we're psyched to be able to make that application. Hopefully, we get it again. We had some good luck last year with the steep grant for sidewalks, and hoping to continue with that. The Rooster River was, this was, and this is, he will, Hurley's gonna have to come in and talk in more detail, but this was a grant that was, submitted by our legislative delegation and was approved. And so, you know, Bill went back and, tried to figure out, all right, we got $2.5 million in grant, and tried to structure a program of how that money could be spent. And so when he comes in, he'll go over the details of that. The last two in the capital section were also, these were also from the legislative delegation, the Stratfield Road and the Post Road and South Handle. I think these were on there already, so they're not new.
You have no more paving here, is that going back into the budget?
DPW's work,
$3.5 million in 2024? Or am I missing it, or am I just, no?
No, that's a good question. So I think as he,
We caught up by then?
as we will be, I think we'll be
Caught
close,
up,
but
or-
probably not till
I think one more.
26 or 27. And so this is gonna be part of what DPW is working on to, update the paving program and, again, figure out what's been done, because there was some money that was used for sidewalks. So how much of the paving money had to be used for sidewalks, contiguous sidewalks, and then how much was used for actual paving of the roads. And so they're working on that as part of it.
Yep.
So the analysis that they're doing over the next 2 to 4 weeks as well, to figure out, kind of rebase where we are. You know, we started out with the program, let's, you know, go back now and look at what we've done and what needs to get done, so, to you, but thank you for pointing that out.
You have 3.2 million in 26 and 2.1 in 27, and nothing in 25.
Yep. So we will, add something, yeah.
Yep.
So the,
Yeah, because we had it before, we were following the program.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I'm going back to, I think it was January, charts that we had, and I don't see it there either. Oh, no, I see it there.
25?
I see it, it's 3.388700 with the reimbursement of 3.125.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those numbers, like I said, those numbers are likely to change over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, roadway capital improvement plan, 3.88700.
What we learned in this process is that the summertime is not great for doing a lot of this analysis, because it's difficult to get everybody together, people are on vacations, and, you know, it's a tough time to, get people together in the same room where we can, go through and do a really thorough analysis of this, and the timing of the consultant sidewalk study. You know, we're gonna have to put some more time into that as well to, before we have solid final numbers for either the sidewalks or paving.
You mentioned that Bill Hurley would be here to talk about it, but can you give us any idea of what that Rooster River project would be addressing?
No, not,
Are you
yeah,
talking about
not
phase
to any
two?
detailed
What are we
extent.
talking about, what year?
$2.5 million in fiscal
In
25.
25, the grant from the
Yeah.
legislative delegation. I've seen it, I didn't, so,
I mean, most of it's in the waterfall and all the backup, the phase 1, phase 2 of Rooster River. Right now, we're working on still working on the phase one with the 3.2 million we put in with ARPA money. We're hoping that the permits will be finally back and forth with DEEP. It's been going on forever, as usual. It should be, approved by November 20 this year. So this part of the project, just for remembering, we're actually, gonna be doing a Rooster River, town hall update for people. We wanted to wait till after Labor Day when people are, back, because we don't want people to have the opportunity of trying to work around also, the open house schedules in that area. But, phase one comes all the way from Fairchild Wheeler, and there's a detention pond, and then it goes down to Owen Fish, and there was back and forth with, there because DEEP, and I know we were dealing with Field and all this other stuff there. And then we purchased the Villa property on Villa Avenue and partnered with the Aztec Land Trust. So it's partial, when you, come off of Brookline and you take a right, it's I think it's the second property in on the right-hand side. We purchased that, and part of it's gonna be passive open space, and the other part's gonna be a detention pond. And then it snakes down all the way to Tungus Hill Park, where we're putting, a detention pond, and that kind of was a sticking point with DEEP, because we wanted to put it along the edge of the woods of Tungus Hill in the back lower field, and they wanted to put it right in the middle of the field and take out the field, and we were yeah, no. So, that was a back and forth. So I think we've, and so that's kind of the project, and then obviously it continues on, the other parts, the rest of the money, because now you're gonna have to go down, and we all know, right? We've been in town a long time. It's the business district down Kings Highway, everybody got flooded out over the years, so those are the parts of the project, and it was really great that, Kristen was able to shepherd that to get that extra money, because it's not like we don't need it. At the same time, we've partnered with, gotten some money, and we worked on a joint effort to, clean out some of the debris along the Rooster River. It's been kind of an issue because we have sent multiple letters to residents. We've even gone out and knocked on their doors, to get permission to enter their property, because you can't just go in their backyard without their permission. So we've gotten some of those. We did partner with Bridgeport cleaning out the debris where we did get easements, and then we were able to do some of that work. So it's an overall, it's a phase one, phase two, and it's a lot of work. But it's important because it's a problem.
All right. Move to, FY '26, page 3 of 5. Anthony is, continuing to, do some playground replacement that we started on and really made a good dent in with the ARPA money. And so he's trying to do, 2 a year, 2 playgrounds a year. So we get them all looking shiny and new with great equipment. We're still, remediation of the fill pile is still a question mark. We're assigning a number of $7 million to it, unknown whether or not that's gonna pan out. I think we're hoping to know more probably the beginning of next year, maybe this spring. Brenda, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, 27. We're doing, so we've moved to, this is the other thing that's kind of being rebased is the
Can I
town.
just ask,
Sure.
sorry, on 26?
Yeah.
We've got sidewalk restoration program, in the top and in the bottom, both for $2 million.
Oh, that's a typo. yeah, that should not be in the non-recurring.
Okay, so that would reduce the non-recurring to,
Yeah,
See, in there,
apologize for that.
it's in there 3 times. It's, no, sorry, expansion,
It
restoration,
should only be in there for,
and restoration.
there shouldn't be any, expansion or restoration. The only thing that should be in there is what's in the capital, over $1 million in '26.
so 3 million comes out of,
Yes. Yep. And if we skip, looks like I did it in '27 too. I apologize. So those numbers will obviously come down.
For 27, what did you mean to put it in capital?
It's
'Cause
in
not
capital,
there.
not in, yeah, so that was just put in the wrong,
Okay.
spot.
Right.
Capital.
Jared, I had some kids asking for a water slide at Jennings today, so consider.
A water slide agenda.
I told them maybe a splash pad, they thought that would be sufficient. Maybe we can get Anthony on, some splash
We have a
pad.
little
Are we
problem
taking- are we
with
taking
splash
personal
pad up at,
requests?
you like Mohegan.
So we're taking personal requests now?
Yeah.
I can think of a couple.
That's cute.
That was nice, yeah.
Well, you know, we used to have a water slide when we were kids. We just put the hose
So-
down the
Yeah,
slide.
right. Piece of plastic.
That was our slide.
They're fun.
I thought it worked well.
The townwide facility upgrades, is another thing that's being, rebased. Last year, in the plan, so originally we put them in every year. Once they started doing the repairs, determined that they were taking a lot longer than they had anticipated, so we put in every other year. And so those are, the numbers are gonna be, those numbers will be pretty close, but those might change a little bit, the townwide facility upgrades. We have Jennings master plan upgrades added to, 27. So you can see in 27, Mark, to your point on the, paving plan, that would all be done out of the, done out of the operating budget.
Right.
And then, 28 and 29.
were we, gonna have a study on the tide gates done?
Yes,
Is that,
that's in progress, did the,
So we don't have-
RFP go out?
capital reflected in here for any of that yet?
I don't remember what we got back
No.
yet, or if they're still in the midst of that. We'll check with Tim, though, get back.
Yeah,
So that would add to this, to the extent.
yep. I don't know if there's anything.
So you got a 29, I'm gonna know it's way out there, you gotta fix the
Sidewalks,
stuff
yep,
there.
yep. So they come out of non-recurring.
And that's a new fire truck, 28?
Yes.
No.
We've, on the next page, similar to last year, rather than, those starts at the board about when things might occur in specific years. We combined FY 30 to 34, so these would be years 6 through 10, in different projects. This hasn't changed much from what it was.
So are these WPCA projects, or are they not considered WPCA projects?
No, these are not WPCA.
The stormwater pump stations?
No, because those are stormwater, not
Yeah,
sewer,
sewage, yeah.
not sanitary sewer. Would, Brooklawn Parkway is, there's a retaining wall in there. Whenever there's whenever we get a lot of water, that retaining wall collapses. DPW's got to go out there, rebuild it, because they're kind of dry fit. It's a dry fit retaining wall, and so they have to go out there and rebuild it. And so this would build a permanent retaining wall in there. So when there's flooding, heavy rains, that they don't have to spend their time going out there and rebuilding it when that happens.
And there's another fire truck in the out years, so we have two of them for $1.5 million apiece, is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
What is that? Is that replacement? Is that addition?
They're both replacements. Yep.
And we just replaced one recently, right?
We did. When was that?
Well, we
I
bought a
think that was
smaller
a
one
command
months
vehicle.
ago.
Wasn't that a command vehicle?
Yeah,
Well,
that was the
that was-
smaller truck.
That was one that we added, but there was a
No, we had
fire
a
truck that
a
was
big one. Yeah,
added.
we had
Not added, but was replaced.
But the
It
recent
was $1
one.
million or something, I remember.
Any of those vehicles that you see on there right now, they're all replacements. Any of the fire trucks that are on.
And how long does a fire truck last?
They get, I don't.
It's gotta
Fire
be at
chief.
least 25 years. It's gotta be at least
I thought it
25
was
years.
at least 20 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but the chief will,
Yeah, he'll talk to you about
You
it.
wanna keep a list of questions so we can, like the tide gates for Tim and then the chief with the fire truck.
Yep.
I think they last a while, but I don't know the exact number.
and we, last year we heard some discussion about, improvements to the police, station. Is that, whatever happened to that? I mean, I know we approved some
Yeah, we use the
smaller repairs, but they also talked about
Yep, and they're still in there, in 25, there's an item in there, non-recurring. They were putting together the RFP, to have, to get, more updated numbers. So that's in the process
but this is
now.
that's a minor, I'll call it upgrade. I mean, that's not a major, were they looking at
I mean, it's, I guess it depends. So they're gonna restructure the lobby area is one thing. They're going to, I think they're mostly minor, but they could end up being, by the time you put them all together and we get the updated numbers, I would guess it's gonna be a couple $1 million, for everything.
but they're gonna stay in that facility though?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, there was no, there's nothing.
If I remember correctly, I thought they were basically sort of like repurposing some of that lobby space, and they were gonna converted into
That's what
additional
they, yeah, we
space
approved
for-
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that what this is, or no?
So the first phase of that was, I believe they were starting in the lobby. And then, so what you guys approved, I think was approved in '24, right? Was that
24,
space? They-
350,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be in process at this point, right?
Well, they're, like I said, they're, in the RFP process.
Got it.
But so the rest of this is for other areas, like there's a classroom that they wanna revamp. The area where the ECC used to be in the downstairs, that's all getting redone. They have to update it for, the locker rooms for,
Yeah, okay, no, I remember. Yeah.
especially
Mhm.
for, females on the force, to give
Right.
them a, more area down there.
So basically, when the chief presented back in the winter and spring, I believe he talked about all this stuff, but this
Yeah.
is just, it's being phased out over.
It's a continuation
Yeah,
of it,
okay,
yeah,
got it.
yeah.
I just checked in with Tim. So the study, is done, they're 90% done, they're writing a draft report. And he said it's gonna be like, it'll be really easy to read, because it'll be like, green is good, yellow is, red is bad. So you should have something for us to look at in the next couple weeks.
That's great. And the next page is this, collection of, some concepts, that are still, we're still fleshing them out, prioritizing them. And, we're gonna continue to look at these. The dollar amounts are not really based on, other than the town hall renovations, I think is an internal estimate, from DPW. The rest are kind of just ballpark numbers, but projects that we would like to do, but aren't fleshed out enough to include in the plan at this point. So WPCA, there was a lot of movement of projects, overall, not a lot of, change in the dollar amount. It was more kind of redistributing, reprioritizing a few things. I believe in '24, the Pine Creek, so we met with Joe DeVonzo and with John Bodie, and Christine Pacelli, who's the project manager, and engineer, and just kind of rejiggered things. There's not a lot new here, if anything. I'll say this, East Trunk, so this would be what you've heard referred to as phase one. So the East Trunk wetland replacement is, what we call phase one. That's been approved. We're in the process of, have gotten bids, 2 of them. But we may be looking at a different way to structure, East Trunk wetlands and the second phase, the East Trunk phase, the East Trunk replacement phase, in terms of how we go out to bid for those, because we weren't happy with the bids that we received. And including the lack of bids, we thought there should have been more. So there may be some changes, different options, including, considering different things, including possibly doing unit pricing, possibly combining the 2 into one bid. So East Trunk wetlands with the East Trunk replacement into one bid. So we're evaluating different options there.
Has that money been bonded? The amount that was approved for fiscal '24?
I'd have to go back and look at that, whether that was bonded or not. East Trunk, the wetlands may have been partially bonded. I'd have to, I'll go back, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, 'cause it sounds like we're back at the potentially back at the drawing board.
Well, we needed to have the funding to be able to go out to bid, and that's when these, issues arose. So we are working on scheduling a meeting with a couple of members of WPCA, our engineering guys, because the way they came in weren't acceptable to them, but we would have never seen them without the money, because they won't bid on it unless you have funding. So, stay tuned. Hoping to have a meeting, we're trying to have a meeting scheduled before September 20th with that group, to get our arms around that and look at these bids and figure out what the next step will be. It's a crucial project, and it really does need to get done, so it's unfortunate that they couldn't come in.
Do we have any idea, like, why nobody was interested in bidding on it? Is it because the project's not big enough?
No, they
or-
bid on them, we just didn't like.
Oh, you did,
the-
okay.
You know, like, they didn't, our guys.
We thought we would get more there.
Like-
The, responses that we got, because we did reach out to some of them afterwards, was they were concerned about unknowns in the project.
Okay.
Because it is under that
Unknowns.
conservation area, and
Yeah, and, you know, in a project like that, contamination and, so, that was which is why one of the considerations is unit pricing. Figuring that we may, but there are pros and cons to that. If we do unit pricing, then we may get more bids, but it also, there's, you know,
More risk.
there's not a cap on what our exposure could be, so. Let's see. In 26, Ruane and Thorpe, I believe that was a new one that got added, that wasn't on last year. We've got funding in there for the upgrade design. You know, we've got the consultants on site who are doing their evaluation of, all the different aspects of the operation, and a different one looking at the capital needs there to see if there's, get a better sense of, instead of just relying on the study that was done in 2017, that we would have a more updated, analysis of what the needs are and what the priority of the needs are. But like, just like last year, the bulk of the work in WPCA is the pump station. And that's throughout, all the way up through 29. And then the last page is, again, we left in a $98 million number on the WPCF renovation. We'll know more when the consultants have done their work. And whatever it is, will likely be spread out. It's gonna have to be spread out because it's gonna be, a lot of work. And so it's gonna, it's not gonna all hit at once.
So that the $118 million is not all years, it's just,
It's all, 30 to 34, FY 30 to 34.
so it's just the last five, so
Yep,
we add on 20, 35, 45, 50, another, so we're talking about, what is that, a 170 million or something here over the next 10 years? For WPCA?
if the 98 holds. And that could very well, that 98 could very well go out 15, 20 years. We just don't know at this point.
So when we wrapped up back in the spring, you know, I think there was general acknowledgement, excuse me, the WPCA needed a lot of work. Is sort of the 98 million here, is that sort of the catch-all for, like, all the work that's gonna need to be done that we think is gonna hit that we haven't already, allotted for in the previous 5 years? Is that kind of what that number is?
That is, you know, what I'll say is that it's an inflated number of all the work that was proposed in the 2017 study. So whatever that was at that time, we inflated it, you know, considering the passage of time, to $98 million. But one of the things the consultants are doing is looking at the priority of those things and whether,
Right.
do they need to get done 5 years from now, 15 years from now? So that, like I said, the 98 million could very well be, we just don't know. 98 million could very well be spread out over 20 years, not 10.
Right, but could it also 98 million turn out to be 200 million? I guess that's my question, because if you're basing it on a 2018 study that at this point is already 5 years dated,
Yeah.
and you're inflating the number off of that, but what's it actually gonna look like when you start doing some of these things, 5 years from now? So whatever you originally based it on will be 10 years old by that point in time.
It could be higher. I don't wanna speculate.
Yeah.
If it could be 200 million, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Okay.
And I guess, you could say the same about any of the
Yeah, no,
projects
I-
in here going out
Yep,
15,
totally
20
understand
years.
that. Yep.
So you've got the berm in here somewhere, I
Yep.
forgot.
26, 27.
Yeah.
maybe?
But, and I know that's an estimate, what about the other, what was the other big open item? The old Nike site, or,
No, the tennis bubble, was a site that had a significant, high concentration of PC. It was expensive.
so we
We're
don't,
done with that one now. The largest two sites remaining is under Penfield, obviously, the amount.
but that's accounted
Still.
for.
But then we have the fill pile itself.
And any of those other, the smaller ones that are like, my recollection, there might have been one, and maybe this is the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
That was like a little bit over $1 million, everything else was under
And I thought
$1
there was,
million. There wasn't any other larger projects that were much greater than that. It was the,
yeah, when we talked about the funds that were put aside for remediation, there was one, I thought, larger project that was not accounted for in there. Was it around maybe around the WPC?
Do you remember how much? Do you remember the dollar amount?
I don't think we put a
No,
dollar
there was
amount on it,
contamination around the PCF building.
but that's not in,
So
that's
maybe
not-
that could be what
that
you're
has not
talking
been
about.
quantified.
That has not been quantified, no.
Well, what was happening with that, that's not part of the Julian fill.
Right.
So when they were doing the hardening project.
Right.
What they did was they dug up, did the hardening, tested the soil, cleaned the soil, and then went to the next piece, and they kind of went, that's how they're moving along.
But that'll have to be addressed if we do,
I don't know how
It's
far
WPCA
along.
work.
Yeah,
WPCA,
I don't know
yeah.
if that's already, I don't know if the WPCA is, has that in their thing? They're,
I don't think so.
I'm not sure,
No.
I can't remember now, 'cause it's like
Mm.
so many other things, but
They don't.
it is part of the, that cleanup was like a go-along cleanup. So I don't know where they even are on that, we should double check, that should be another note, Chair. Let's
I mean,
ask
if we've got
Bremer.
a collection of things in the out years that may have to be addressed, should probably have it as a placeholder, because I think the concern was you start doing this work on the WPCA and you're gonna run into that, right? Or WPCF?
I think the idea would be to do that first. I mean, assuming that there's been some back and forth about, well, are we gonna have to dig? You know, is there gonna have to be any digging that would necessitate an environmental study?
Mhm.
Or is it all above ground? My guess is, given the, like the expanse of what probably needs to be done there, that I would guess that there's gonna be some digging. But I don't know for sure. So that's the, the high level on the town side and WPCA. Like I said, we'll have the department heads come in and talk more, particularly on the FY '25 projects, because that's what's gonna be voted on.
So Jared, if I'm looking at this, so if I'm looking at the out years, 30 to 34, and you're just looking at the town and the WPCA, you're looking at about, what is it, about 166, 167 million, something like that. It looks like you're eating up just about all of your bonding capacity right there before you even talk about the Board of Education.
Oh, I think it's more than that. I think the WPCA alone was that amount.
He's saying
Well,
30 to
in the out,
34.
like, in the out years, 30 to 34.
Oh, just in the out
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
Well, that's got the 98 million, but yeah.
We have time to, prioritize and get new numbers and get these numbers updated. Again, these are
On the outside.
5 to 10 years.
I mean, the
away.
WPCA is still talking about, increasing their sewer fees,
yeah.
to cover a lot of this stuff. I mean, they have a lot of projects been on that list for a long, long time,
Yeah,
so.
What,
I'm guessing aren't gonna be able to put off.
They gotta start
Yeah.
chunking it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta get it done.
Yeah,
There hasn't been anything done there.
They literally
And
have
they're
not done anything.
either on the facility or
Not
the
really.
infrastructure in, 15, 20 years.
yeah. No, I understand that. That was my big takeaway from, the spring. And so, like, I guess, we'll probably talk about this more as we move further, but like, my big thing when I just look at some of these numbers here is we're not at capacity, but we're getting close. And what happens if there's some sort of emergency, if you will, or a project that we had in an out year all of a sudden needs to be done in the next year or two? Are we prepared to handle that kind of stuff?
So we
I guess
have,
that's my
I would
question.
say, a couple of things. Now, we always have the ability to reprioritize
Yeah.
projects.
And we
That's
also
always
built
available.
in a buffer in, if you remember, I know we're all just coming back, so we're getting our heads kind of back around everything.
Yeah.
but We built a buffer into everything, so there is,
Yeah, I mean, most of that's
Money.
being eaten up
Okay.
by the WPCA at
it
this
is
point.
kind of,
I w-
WPCA is the
But to your
key
point,
element.
Brenda, I
Yeah.
think the buffer is in that 8.45%. If, if we saw that there was some kind of emergency, the official cap in the policy is 10%.
Right.
So there's a buffer built into there that,
Protect.
could be usable.
Okay.
what about ARPA? I know we're gonna get an update in the quarterly, but we still had projects that were not started yet, as I recall. And I know we kept saying we have a long time to kind of get them authorized, but we have, another year now?
We have another year and, a little bit
15 months or
over
so.
a year.
Okay.
So, and just, our plan is to, by the end of this calendar year, everything would be set. And so, I don't anticipate there being a lot of, unallocated amount at this point. Less than, I would say less than.
So you expect the money to all be authorized by the end of the year?
Yes.
Or whatever the criteria is?
Yes, yep. Yep, and so there may be things like, I'm thinking about, Rooster River. All the work may not be done by the end of next year, but it'll all be.
Encumbered or
would be
whatever the.
committed at that
Committed.
point, which is that's the
Committed,
standard.
that's what it was, not authorized.
Yeah,
Committed. And committed means we
There's-
have
there's some.
committed to a vendor, we have a
Yeah,
bid,
correct.
we have
Right.
okay.
Right. Yep.
And we could bring that list, we sent that list out, right?
yeah, so what, and.
Because we
what-
we have to do it for the federal government, they want to see where you are, what's your status. So we keep that updated
Yep.
about where we are, and I know Jared, works with the department heads to they keep telling him where they're on this project.
Yeah, and we'll get that updated in the next couple of weeks and have it for the finance. But I don't know if this is where you were going. I doubt that there's gonna be more than $1 million that could be, that would be unallocated, that maybe could be applied to some capital projects.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
So how about you
You wanna-
get the answers to the questions that were asked today? Are there any additional, does anybody have any other things they want some follow-up on?
So you're gonna rerun the schedule?
I'll rerun the schedules, updates, I apologize for that, I'll, rerun those with the, some of the typos taken out, and, I'll resend them out to you.
Jared, is a way, and if it's too big of a deal, don't worry about it. Is there just a way when you rerun these just to highlight the projects that were, new or, changed significantly? I don't know, like color, blue or something like that, just so they're easy to look at?
Yeah, I can try to do that.
It's a big deal, don't worry about it.
Especially with the new ones, for sure, I can do that.
Yeah, what's the status of the Roger Ludlow Middle School turf?
Angela?
It's a Parks and Rec.
No, I know, but he's not here, so I thought Angela probably would know something about it.
That's in,
Anthony had a baby, everybody.
that's congratulations.
Yeah.
When did we have that meeting? When did we have that meeting with the parents here?
I mean, ARPA's
Oh,
that's not an
yeah.
ARPA thing, but I'm looking at all the ARPA things in
Last time I heard of
23.
anything about the turf.
Yeah, 'cause that was $4 million,
That's its
right?
Yeah, well, he
4.5
was trying to
$4.5 million.
reconfigure it because that's right,
They want
remember?
baseball.
Lights.
I want baseball and lights, and yeah, but
Well, they wanted a lot, and they weren't, I know when was that?
I'm trying to remember. It was winter, I think, or early spring, maybe.
Something.
It was
I haven't heard anything about it
after
since.
But he was going back to the designer to see if it could fit, or what they were proposing, because they brought a lot of
The
information.
suboptimal lighting.
Right, and then there's a whole rule against the highway, and then the neighborhood, and all this stuff.
He does have a plan that he's getting ready to present.
Anthony?
That was
He
the
does.
last conversation him and I had, it was probably a couple weeks back, so.
Okay.
But the timing of that, what did he tell us? Does it have to be done like in the spring, or?
When him and I spoke, they
Supposed
were,
to be done
they
already.
were looking at,
Well, that's.
Yeah,
that's-
I'm just
they wanted to
seasonally
change.
when it,
They wanted to change.
when we spoke, they were looking at late fall, and then they were going back and forth with the contractors discussing whether a late fall start would be better or waiting till an early spring start, so that's what they're looking at.
so you think it could actually begin this fall?
That was what they were going, he didn't have a decision yet, but they were going back and forth to see what would be optimal for the work to be done.
Well, because they changed it. I mean, it was ready to go, and then. So, we'll see. So we'll pull all that stuff together, get, I'd like us to meet up again. I'd like us to have some more information for everybody. I'll hopefully, it makes sense to have that information on the tide gate And
Yep.
then what we can do is just, with a reminder on where we are with our cleanup stuff, just, for people to be able to know that.
Do you have another date for this, for next week?
Yeah, no, I don't have it yet, I'm saying, I'm trying to think it through. What about you guys? I mean, are you?
Just don't plan on any Tuesdays.
No, but I know, but I mean, are you guys flipping around anything on your end?
Oh, I
Do
mean,
you
I'm
wanna-
gonna,
You or Angeles wanna talk?
yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'll intro, and then if there's any, yeah. So, BOE, so what you have before you, thank you for putting this out. It's the same as what we had in January. It hasn't been updated from then, so I don't know if I necessarily need to walk through this, because it's the same information.
Right.
The Board of Ed just pulled this back out last week at our meeting to start looking at it again. As you recall, back in January, the Board of Ed was still, had some lingering questions we needed to ask about bigger projects, redistricting, all of that. So we brought this back, last week. We're gonna be discussing it again this evening. I do know, and Angeles could probably speak to this better, or Mr. Testani, if you'd like, there's a couple things that were slated for 25, that maybe could be pulling forward to this year. Just a couple things, the, North Stratfield's roof project, so the seed money for that, right? And the Sherman boilers for two, that were for 25, that might be coming back to the board to, for 24. So that would be a change to this year,
Okay.
if you wanna look at those. And then, we're obviously in the midst of the Phase 1 AC project, the building committee. There was some talk at the last week's meeting about possibly pulling out the seed money for Phase 3, 4, and 5, not 2, but 3, 4, and 5 anyway, up, in order to get better, schematic designs up front, better numbers up front, that kind of an issue. So those haven't been done yet by us, but those were some of the initial ideas that Mr. Papageorge brought to us last week, and again, we'll continue that conversation this evening. I mean, obviously, we have some big decisions looming over us, and of course, the two projects that are out later in the years on Jennings and Dwight were a big question for all of us, and, whether we could operate with 10 or 11 schools, it's looking like that's not going to be possible. So they are on the waterfall that you have, but not until, I guess, after this 5-year plan at this point, starting in 29, 30, basically. But, things could change as we look at this again, and we'll hopefully have that for you. And the capital planning workshop, I've already let Ms. Shelton know that we already have our meeting that night. We have our own meeting that night, so the Board of Ed wouldn't be able to attend on the 26th. So that's currently the stance, but if I miss any of the finer points, jump in.
No, as you mentioned, the building committee's working through the Phase 1 air conditioning project. Now that we have designs and specs, we are better refining those numbers a little bit. I think something to mention is with those new numbers that they're refining is the North Stratfield roof project would be pulled out of that. So it would really fall off the waterfall and roll into that Phase 1 air conditioning.
North Stratfield is one of the
North
schools, if you don't remember.
Right, of course, yeah.
One of the meeting with the building committee and the engineers, one of the things to decide was why are we gonna put new equipment on a roof that's 2 years out from being replaced?
Yeah.
So
That's
it makes
smart.
sense to loop it in, so that's what we did do. So that number will be included when we start talking about the update for the Phase 1 air conditioning project.
So, I'm looking, listen,
How do you say the words?
I'm not following, you guys, with a microscope, but, where are you guys? Are you trying to make a decision and then put the wheels in motion, whatever decision you make? Because it could impact the building, right? How this all kind of shakes out later on.
Good.
Right, so, are you guys because what was the plan to?
So we have ECC money on here too, in
Right.
out years, that may come off or go into something else,
So is the plan to have something done and then it would be then implemented the following year, but what if you end up picking something that requires the construction time and all that? Then you'd have to push, right?
We cannot, I'm not gonna speak for the state, you know, but my understanding, and we've asked and had multiple discussions, is that we must do something for 24, 25. It's not like, well, we passed a plan, but we're not gonna do it for 5 years. We have to address that issue, at a minimum, you know, but the board had expressed when we had multiple conversations back in this winter, that we don't wanna do multiple phases of redistricting and
Right.
lingering over the community,
right.
and, you know, I mean, but again, can't speak for the board, we haven't made our decision, we still have some time, there's still a lot of outstanding information, we're gonna be discussing it tonight, again, obviously. But yeah, we need to make a decision on what we're doing, and then all the pieces, that's why we brought back the waterfall last week too, just not only for this meeting,
Right.
take a look at it, but also how does this intersect with any long-range plans that we might have? And like I said, you know, last winter when we were meeting here, was there a possibility we could close, you know, a building?
Right.
Now it's looking like, we're tight on space, if anything, in trying to fit all of our enrollment, plus our programming, plus curriculum spaces like art rooms and music rooms and, you know, the general rooms. So, I mean, to simplify things for people, I always say, look, we've got 291 classrooms at the elementary level to do all things. So, is that enough or not, right? And you also you understand you want to have headroom, population shifts, section shifts, so, but from my perspective, we have a timeline, we have a tight timeline, and we need to start making some decisions about what we're gonna do so that the superintendent and Angelus can start better planning in terms of also not only, operationalizing things, but any budgetary impacts as well.
Right. I mean, I see you're kind of like in a
And you
tough
guys please,
position.
like, jump in, you know,
Well, I mean, listen, personally, you know, I think you're in a tough position because there is some long-range things to be thinking about, right? Because when we were meeting last time, you guys were talking about possibly closing Dwight, and of course, everybody set their hair on fire.
or one of the two.
Well, one of the schools, and they talked,
Mhm.
you talked about Dwight being old, and Dwight is old, and it needs work. You know, and then you're kind of like up against it because the state says you have to comply with the racial imbalance, which, you know, I have a very, well-known opinion about. You know, I don't think it's fair that we have to be rushing to comply with state law, because that I think.
They might say we've had 15 years.
You know, well, I think it's an old law that should be changed, and I
Just
tried
saying,
very hard
that's
to
what they
do
think
that,
it's
but,
rushing.
but again, I mean, because there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's money. I mean, you know, well, you know, do we, you know, living in a perfect world, would I love to, like, knock down Dwight and build a brand-new state-of-the-art facility there? Yeah, I'd love that. You know, would that include maybe an ECC, or could we build an ECC at the Giant Steps property, or,
Right.
you know, these are all these wonderful things that we should be afforded the opportunity to talk about and plan for without having, you know, the proverbial gun to our head saying, you get it done, because I don't really care about your long-range planning. So it's frustrating. And I know you feel it, and I know you get it.
Are you guys at capacity because of increased enrollment, or what's driving that?
Do you want me to answer that?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, when you look at an older building like
Yeah.
the Jennings, for example, it was built under a traditional design.
Yeah.
You know, in today's world, schools are built differently. There's the need for workspaces, for services, you know, special ed kids to
Occupational.
be pulled
Yeah.
out in small group. You don't have those, so now you have teachers sharing a classroom. So people look at classroom space and say, okay, there's 18 classrooms there, you only need 14, so there's space there. Well, you have teachers that have to service kids as English as a second language, they have to work somewhere. You have to have, you know, we have STEAM as a subject that we offer now. We didn't have when the school was built, they need a classroom. So there are specialized areas that just don't exist, that once we do a construction project,
Yeah.
even chopping those classrooms up may not be enough square footage. An addition to the school may be necessary. I do think we're getting more kids every day coming into the district, and with class size, policies that we have, it's nice. You could be able to put more kids in certain buildings, if they fit, but they don't.
do you have to have, and I, you know, I don't know this, do you have to have like STEMs? Does like every school have to have that, or, you know, can you concentrate like one school for those kids? I mean, I'm just asking a question, I don't
For
know.
special education?
Well, yeah, or something like that.
Oh, you move specialized programs around, but at the same time, you don't wanna be moving around every couple of years based on where there could be available space or not. And for the STEAM, you wanna offer that curriculum to every child,
Yeah,
'cause every kid should have exposure to that curriculum. I think one of the biggest things that's driving all of this is the ECC. We know we have a model at Ward that works. Now, in a lot of cases, on certain things, you know, staff opinion, you know, you take it in, you utilize it, you analyze it, you make decisions. But in this case, to create an environment where they can do their job and do their job well is important, because these are teachers or specialized areas, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists. There's not a lot of them out there. And if we create an environment where it's prohibiting them to do their job well, to service their kids, and they leave, we're stuck. So we want to create an environment where they love coming to work and servicing the children that they serve. The law changing for kindergarten throws another wrench in this now,
Yeah,
because kids will stay in preschool longer, another year,
that's true.
and you don't want those 4 turning 5-year-olds in a half-day program. They want to be in a full-day program, so that requires now more room. So finding a location for all the ECC, or building upon a school, or renovating a building to add more room is going to be necessary as time goes on. Every year that goes by, are going to be more kids staying in preschool and just piling on.
Well, I think, listen, obviously, I don't remember, I know it's hard. But it's gonna have, whatever you do decide, right, at the end of the day, it's gonna impact the overall construction budget or the bonding budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
I mean, look, regardless of programming or whatever it is, we have 2 schools that are very old, concerns about a lot of systems in those buildings.
yeah,
Air, just aside from what we're dealing with,
right,
you know, even if we weren't,
right,
right?
no, right,
Like Holland Hill or whatever, you know what I'm saying? There are 2 schools that house our kids and our teachers every day. So even if we weren't in this situation, just my personal perspective is those kids and those teachers need to be in good buildings too, that have air and, you know, have the adequate learning spaces to do their job and to service our kids. So, I mean, it is, yes, to your point, interrelated, totally
Yeah.
get what you're saying, but irrespective of that fact, I think the big point that we both might be making here is, started this conversation with, could we possibly fit into 10? And it's looking like,
No, there's no way.
you know, not only 11, but it's gonna be hard with 11 at night, just because the way that education has changed, and we have several schools that haven't been renovated yet.
Is the facilities committee back in,
We
I
always
remember
have
you
a
guys-
facilities committee, but I'm not on that
Is
committee.
that, who's that, Nick, and,
Yeah, we're going to get talking
Yeah.
about a lot of these things, but.
are you on it? Are you?
But part of the other problem too is you're also considering that we're paying for a floor almost on a 501 for central office. I mean, we're throwing money out the window there.
We did an analysis of that, it's not as bad as,
Well, but the facility is, we're outgrowing it as well. You know, it needs work.
reduce your administration, superintendent.
I'm just saying, it's not an ideal location.
I mean, there have been questions, and while I have you here, and, you know, we have the opportunity, there have been a lot of questions, I don't know if people have written to you either, like, what, do you have any plans for what you're doing with the other side of Giant Steps at this point? The part that's fenced in and just like,
No, the concrete building.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
No, and we talked
You
about that here, remember? I think it was our last meeting, you know, we had some offers on some, potential taking over it by private private entities. One was a pediatric hospice, facility, but that pulled out. You know, ultimately, when we first bought it, we thought we could rehab the cement building, some way to like park our extra DPW trucks or things like, or, equipment or things of that nature, and then utilize the other area for fields, because we always need fields. And we still do need more fields. And then those other items came up as possibilities that wouldn't be intrusive on the property and could bring a little tax money back to the town. But those fell through. So right now, we don't really have any fights, so to speak.
The other thing
Or
we've
interest.
talked about, Angelus and I, is it's nice to have all these projects laid out in certain years.
Yeah.
What's lead time on HVAC equipment right now? 18 to 24 months. So if that doesn't get resolved, all these phases fit nicely in certain years. Are they ever gonna get done in that year? No.
So it's about like when they get approved, though, in the bonding resolution.
Right.
Right, I mean, it's about
When it
priorities.
gets done is when it gets done, but it's when we go through.
Right,
the
Right, it's priorities, right? And to your point, we have one very old elementary school, we have one other elementary school that's older, and, what are the priorities at the end of the day? Because we can't do it all. We have to make some decisions, not me, the board has to make decisions about what the projects we want. Or what we can all afford, really, is more probably appropriate.
Well, I would say, listen, let's just be, real here. Within the parameters that you've laid out, we will never be able to do these two renovations at Dwight and Jennings. They just don't fit. So there needs to be a plan to, whether it's putting aside money or something, to be able to fund these large projects. We did it for Penfield. Something's gotta happen, and I think the quicker we start talking about it, the better, because, unless we plan to bond, close to 40 million, or more than that, 43 and 44 million just for the Board of Ed, plus whatever the town needs, we're talking about roughly double of what we're saying our capacity is. So, if indeed these renovations can be pushed out that far, there's a little bit of time to start thinking about that. The town's had some surpluses, you guys have had some surpluses, maybe we need to start putting some structure around that.
Yeah.
'Cause otherwise, it seems like the solution just seems to be to push it out, and that's not a solution.
Which makes it just more expensive,
Yeah,
too,
and
on
it's,
top of it.
yeah. So,
When,
if we're truly 5 years out, that can be addressed over a 5-year period, at least somewhat, to minimize, the hit here that you've got, in any given year. Unless there's some other big windfall of cash, we sell,
Well, yeah.
we sell a piece of
listen,
prop,
right, it's
I don't,
priorities, right? So,
right,
and I think we have to listen, I'm not inclined, and that's why I put the budget cap in, the bonding cap in, which is a bonding cap, and again, you're right.
Yeah.
And we put aside some surplus, but listen, at the end of the day, if we didn't have to spend, upwards of 30 million or more dollars on contaminated fill, we could have built a elementary school. That would have been great, but it sucks, but we had to pay. These WPCA projects sitting there, and this kind of happened like before I got involved on the RTM many years ago, was the town kept deferring maintenance on the schools,
mhm,
and then the schools were in trouble. And then we had a bond, $268 million in a 2-year period. So, should we go there again? No, we shouldn't, but we also have to be cognizant of what we can afford. And it does, to your point,
Oh, agreed.
WPCA projects are, could choke a horse. That's some real money. And so we have to prioritize, what are we doing? Does it mean some of the AC projects get moved off to renovate a building? Does it mean we move some of our infrastructure projects around? Like, we're all in this together. It's not the board, and I said this before, it's not the Board of Ed versus the town. We're all in this together. We have to figure out what are our biggest priorities. The tide gates, that's important. That study's coming back. We need, we can't screw around. We have to fix things that could have serious impacts on homeowners, and the Rooster River stuff and all these things, right? So hopefully we can, I know, it's not an enviable position that you're in, I know, but we're kinda all in this together. We have a lot of expensive things that need to get done.
Yep.
And we're just gonna
No, I,
sweat it out
I mean,
and try to figure out.
I appreciate that, and I think there's always been a
Yeah,
process.
the surpluses, and they've been eaten up by the fill pile stuff.
Right, but now we've got Penfield, I'm just saying, going forward, I think we got ourselves into the situation because we prioritized every year within a certain amount of money and just deferred things that were too expensive.
Right.
So, you know, this just feels like a little bit more of the same. I mean, reprioritizing is gonna mean putting off things that should be done, unless these things really aren't necessary, right? And they're likely they all are, so, at some level.
Some more than ever,
And
right?
yes,
Yes.
and, yeah, could you not fix the playground? Sure. Could you, but, I mean, in
That's
terms of
small
the major
potatoes.
dollars here, you know, the sewer systems, we need to have our sewers functioning to support the growth of this town. I mean, we've gotta get that done, right? We can't have schools that are, falling apart, so.
The sewers actually, you know, are the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and
They
so
really
all
are.
of that, so I mean, I think it's not an either or, it's not prioritize
Right,
or do this, it's both.
right.
It's prioritize and then think about a long-term funding mechanism that acknowledges that we've got some big things coming up here, which are not gonna fit into the bonding capacity that we see, unless we decide that we're willing to bond, substantially more than we,
And
than we say we're gonna do, and I know no one wants to
And-
do that.
And to your point, and possibly pull back.
Right.
The years later.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
those are good discussions to have.
So some of that
Working with our delegation is important, because I had a conversation with a colleague in another town yesterday, how there are certain municipalities in the last couple of years where the school construction reimbursement has grown a lot. So how that was able to be accomplished by those towns to get 14, 18, 24% increases in their reimbursement from the state. I had to get off the phone with them quickly, I had
And there's
parents
a big
waiting.
discrepancy between municipalities in terms of your
So
reimbursement.
were they wealthier municipalities like Fairfield, or
There
were
were
they?
some, but they were not poor municipalities
Okay.
like Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven either.
Okay.
So there are some, I'm gonna get the list from him because he was giving me the numbers, and he was scratching his head as well as to how there was
Yep.
13, 14, 18, over 20% increases in school construction project reimbursement, and
You probably might notice that there might be a chairman or two who lives in that town.
well, maybe,
I mean,
but,
that's just how it
but I
kinda
think
goes
that's
over there.
important to start looking at.
All
because
of the
it's-
above,
all-
all
yeah.
of the above,
It's-
all these things.
Well, also
because-
in the
It would be helpful.
The ARP money, to your point, I mean, that's still out there, the HVAC grant, so, I mean, we need to capitalize on that if we can.
Is there
We
ARPA?
got additional funds that we didn't anticipate, about $800,000 more in reimbursement than we expected to get. So, I mean, just across the board, capitalizing on whatever we can find before the 24 deadline to encumber
Yeah.
is, a smart move on all of our parts, obviously.
I mean, look, Kristen was able to, help work really hard to get us this money for the Rooster River. If we could get some, I mean, this is
Well, yeah, I
stuff
mean,
we
the
should be
state
sitting,
reimbursement rates,
some
all
more,
that, I mean,
funding for projects would be,
But yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure we're not gonna get into this tonight, Lori, but to your point, is this a group that will work on that, or how do you foresee it happening? I mean, again, obviously, we have to make some decisions ourselves, I get it, but like you said, whether 24 or 29, I mean, it's not going anywhere, right? The bathrooms that were supposed to be done a decade ago are here today, so, and it's just a lot more expensive. So,
gotcha.
The siloed year by year.
I mean, we're not
is-
starting from zero. I mean, a lot has gotten done, and
A lot has gotten done.
it has.
And we're still digging out, right?
Yeah.
We're still dealing with closures from the 80s and getting rid of the portables and all of that.
And that was
We're
a
not,
huge-
we're just not out
And
of
that
the
was
hole
a
yet.
huge deal to get rid of those portables,
Yeah.
it was huge, it took a long time.
Yeah.
Got one last, I was in there today.
Where?
Jennings.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, two, sorry.
This is
Come
a
on,
Sherman.
Ann, let's,
Yeah,
It's
two,
Sherman.
sorry. Forgot Sherman, yeah.
All right, well, this was, I think, helpful. If you do have any follow-up questions, I think, just obviously send them, to Jared and,
Yeah, can I, just one other thing, Lori, if you, given where the, Board of Ed is on their projects, maybe it's too late to do it this year, but if you would consider pushing off the, Board of Finance meeting to review capital.
Now,
your
when is that
workshop,
supposed
like
to
a
be?
month.
October 26th.
It would give us more time to meet.
what day is it? That's the date of the meeting?
That's the day of the capital planning workshop that's scheduled,
Oh,
I
it
believe,
is?
right, Lori?
So you scheduled
What?
the, yeah.
Wait,
Um,
what did you say?
I thought you said September.
On the Board of
September.
Finance
so ours
meeting
is
list,
September.
it says, September 26th.
September,
Yeah, October
Sorry.
would be better.
Sorry,
because you're right,
September
there's a lot
26th.
going on.
I'm like months in the.
It's just something to consider, and if
Well,
we.
we'd have a clearer picture of what might be on that 24, 25, if we're all kind of together, like if you have some stuff decided on your end, we get some additional information back from some of the studies and things that are going on here.
I'm just saying, we won't be there on the 26th.
Right, and we're also meeting with, WPCA and our engineering and DPW, trying to get our handle on some other things too, so. I mean, it would be a more informative, and productive meeting, obviously if you guys are there, because the money's all the same money.
And if everybody
Sorry.
likes this venue,
We have to probably,
it's,
as we've done.
summertime's tough to get everybody together.
The capital planning workshop and try to get those first.
Wait, can Mr. Poppins?
Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah.
As we've done in the past, if you guys chose to hold off on the capital working group meeting, then we would probably try to come before you all as a group with our, two roofs for next year ahead of time, because we find that if we start pushing off the bidding process for those, we get outrageous bids on them.
We did that last year too, if you recall,
Yeah, we've
before
done it
the
in the
work.
past, so.
Riverfield
those are the
and
only two
Sherman and
that
all
we
that came
concern
last year
about.
early.
Yep.
Have to get them in. Because of the state.
I mean,
The state reimbursement process, that's the reason
Yeah, some of
why.
the stuff, we did.
I'll reach out to board members, but I don't think we'll push it off for months. Like, I think
No, I'm
maybe if
thinking
you
like a
wait,
month.
in
If you could do
in
it- if you could
October,
push it a
but
month.
I think if we do it we have to do it in October, but,
Yes.
so this way, and we won't do it on a Tuesday night?
We have to,
Did I hear that? We'll figure it out.
You did hear that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would be helpful if we all coordinate together and make sure our people are available
Can
too.
you do something on the 5th?
Because some of these, people for the 24, list, you definitely wanna hear from them, and we wanna make sure they're available. And so it's good if we coordinate.
If you look at the next 5 years out, we're about $8 million short of the 12 and a half.
Yeah,
Maybe we start pushing up the AC projects,
they're not ready for that.
8 and a little bit more, maybe you knock one of the schools out sooner.
Wait, what did you say?
So we're over $8 million short on the 12 and a half.
Yeah, about 10, actually, but you wanted to give some buffer, right? Aren't we about 10, it looks like, on this cover sheet?
What are you looking at me like I got it in my back pocket?
No, what I'm saying is,
We can increase.
Well, but if
you know.
that coupled, maybe if there is any surplus at the end of the year, we're always trying to figure out, can we create a non-lapsing account to put it in?
You're saying if the town hasn't gone to the 35 million as planned, and they're at 30 million, take that 5 million, but.
That's
but
not
it-
that easy though, because
Right.
you can't bond money and put it in a savings
Right.
account.
No,
Right.
But you could do that with, surplus or something like that.
Right.
So,
And.
What I'm saying is, we're not spending the
They
whole
wouldn't
12
have
and a
that
half.
yet,
We
though.
need to move stuff.
yeah, and you guys, we put that out there as a landmark for you, and if you guys can find a way to rearrange your projects so that they continue to fit in within the 12.5 million, and you max it out.
But like we said, some things
That's
we
what
already
that's
know
there
are gonna
for.
be moved up, right? Because they are, and then also we've got, that area AC seed money is almost like 6 million to begin with, so, right, if you pull, and we push it up, so when it comes before the board and it's updated and we have new numbers and it's gonna get changed, then obviously we'll bring it back to this group to say, okay, now we've updated it, this is what it looks like. And
When
I'll
do
just
you
advocate for myself, for our superintendent and Mr. Papa George to get as close to that 12.5 as possible.
When do you think when will you have that work done?
I mean, I have to work with Mr. Papa George to know when he'll be ready to present that.
And the building committee for the AC is meeting Friday, my
I
understanding.
mean, our next, not tonight, obviously,
But I'm
but the
saying,
12th maybe? Would it be updated
Oh,
by the
okay.
12th?
Because I think it would be productive for us to meet again, because I think this is actually more productive. You know, because we're really moving things around, getting things set. And then for the 24, you know, then what do you call it, the capital planning thing?
Are you just gonna send out dates to everybody, or?
Oh, for this, yeah, but no
Tuesdays.
Tuesdays, right?
Well, at least not, I mean, unless we're gonna end early enough, we just have meetings and
Yeah.
executive sessions and stuff like that, but.
I'm traveling the whole week of the 8th, on the 12th, that week, or 11th,
September?
after our committee meetings, September 12th, that week I'm traveling.
Okay.
So the week of the 18th.
I'll send out some dates, and then we'll
I'm sure you're gonna wanna meet again more before the capital planning.
100%, but if Lori can move it to October, it obviously gives benefits to everybody, gives us all more time to get our, you know, information tightened up, and then for us to have another working session, I think.
I've let everyone know that basically just forget us for Tuesday night,
Yep, I got you. Sorry about that.
for the foreseeable future.
I know.
What?
See that look,
What?
every Tuesday for this foreseeable future.
And maybe some other nights too.
Listen, Mr. Testani, I feel sorry for you. I did my 6-year term, okay? My
Look at
sentence,
the,
I did my 6-year
maybe-
sentence on the Board of Ed, okay?
October
I
18th.
feel sorry for you.
You never said on this end of it.
All right.
October 18th, maybe?
Okay. Check
It's
that.
a Wednesday. So that might be,
Poland,
because we're gonna have,
yeah, that's where my son is.
What about the 19th?
3B's
Yeah,
down there?
BBB.
Hmm?
The 19th?
Yeah.
That's where Maddie lives down there.
Oh,
Can you do
What are you talking,
Thursday?
October?
18th or 19th
floor?
for the
19th is
capital.
better for me.
Is it
That's
he-
one of the-
I need to check
Yeah,
the
he-
department head.
October
I have to
19th.
check with the board,
I
so,
can't remember.
Because actually, we're talking October, right?
yeah.
Brewster is.
What were we just saying?
October 19th.
She was in the one where it was cafeteria,
Ooh.
and
Yeah, that's-
dorm
I think
room,
that's Brewster.
and then, I can't remember, it was.
25th?
I think there's.
No, because we're gonna get
I
into.
think there's an FBRA meeting. It says,
Yeah, there's one floor of rooms. Yeah. You gotta walk up that hill, you gotta climb.
Oh, my God. We,
Oh, actually, you know what?
you know, when we did the tour,
Okay,
they avoided.
I wasn't gonna say something, and then you said you were going.
When we were.
What day were you saying?
Just wanted to be.
Well, whether she's sick or
Like in the
not,
evenings or nights.
like, I'm gonna be like, okay.
The 18th is,
The Wednesday.
Are we gonna adjourn here?
the 18th is the League of Women Voters debate, so we can't.
Are we adjourned?
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we adjourned?
Yes, yes, we're adjourned.
I missed